They handed me a broadsword and they said, okay, we want you to run and jump off this little embankment and swing the sword at the motorcycle coming through. And I looked at him and I said, you're gonna pay me to play? I found what I'd been training for all my life and didn't know it.
It's the best job in the world because it's work.
When I went to France, they were still pinching women in the rear. Of course, they get a swat from me.
You know, we work really hard and we love what we do and we're super passionate about it.
What I love about it is trying to make it as seamless as possible.
I think 100% I believe stunt performers are the real heroes.
If you're a woman and you're in stunts, you worked your ass off.
But I think that we're like the unsung heroes.
Ready? 3, 2, 1. Good. If I do something like this, it won't sell, right? From the eye of the lens into the point of impact, there is an imaginary line, and I have to cross that line, and bam, right? Boom. You can do the other side too. Bam. Good. More time. Bam. Good. So this is where I punch. But if the camera travels back to me, you realize that there is a big gap. Keep going. You see, so I'm not very safe. Now I can't do this anymore because now you see the gap, right? So all I have to do is a hook to cross that line. Action. Good. One more time. Action. Pretty good, right? So I pretty much, from all the angle, look like, I'm smashing her in the face, but I still stay safe. So this is really where I'm stopping. As I'm stopping here, she's going back. So now she's gonna hit me with a hammer.
How I started in stunt work was through motorcycling. And I did this trick where I would balance a motorcycle and stand on my head. And then, growing up, I could wheelie my bicycle farther than any of the boys. I could ride a unicycle. I played all sports. So anything active I loved. I surfed, snow skied, water skied. Anything that was active, I went, I want to do that. I want to do that. I want to do that.
I was into acting and also into circus. I was an elite gymnast. It just seemed like a natural progression to learn more.
I started martial arts at the age of 6 years old. I competed till about 24 years old and wanting to just be able to do it forever. So it was just like, what else can I do? So I was like, stunts.
My introduction into stunts originally was through horses. I grew up doing lots of different sports, martial arts, snowboarding, anything outside, but I always had a real love for horses and a passion for horses. And I started helping train horses for the movies. Some people are definitely have specialized skills, right? Their specialty is martial arts. Some people are just drivers. For me, I want to be as horrible as possible, so I work on all those things.
Everybody sort of needs to know how to fight. And definitely everyone has to know how to fall. Also, I grew up with Xena, warrior princess. I think everyone my age in stunts that's a woman has the same answer.
First, my parents like, wait, you have a degree in psychology and now you're gonna go to Hollywood? I'm like, yeah. But being a collegiate gymnast was really helpful. So when I started working and training, you know, I had to learn how to fight. I'm not a martial artist in any way, but just fighting for camera. And for me, during the wire work, it was that was my jam.
Back in the day, they used to have guys wigged up, looking like women, and they would do the jobs.
It was unusual for women to do the big stunts, like the big car stunts, and a lot of the bigger stunts they would use men to do. Before I got started, I saw a TV show, and it was supposed to be a girl on a motorcycle. His shoulders were this wide and his neck was this big, and I'm going, that's a guy, I could do that.
You know what's funny is I've worked with stunt men. It's mostly been men. I've never had a stunt woman. I probably have had maybe like 4 stunt men, but I don't typically work with stunt women. It's always like a man with a wig who has a better ass than I do. They're always in really great shape. I go, who's this? Yeah.
It is so male dominated. Because the coordinators, the majority of the stunt coordinators, they need to fulfill, you know, either doubling or they do utility stunts where they need a group of people to just run away from an exploding car or something like that. But the stunt coordinator is really our boss. So we get the call and we go on set. But I didn't even realize it until maybe 3 or 4 years later when I was like, wow, I don't think I've ever been called by a woman. And I think that it's so, at the time, it's so normal. You know, the director and usually the producers, and you're on set, and 80% of the people that are on set, they're all men. Yeah, but it was so normal at that time. It's 100% male dominated.
So stunts is definitely, I guess you could say, a more male dominated business, and it is a little bit harder for females to get into it. I came from martial arts, and obviously people would be like, martial arts, male.
Back when I started, it was more unusual to have women in action roles because there weren't a lot of police women. There weren't women firefighters. There wasn't women in the army and doing things like that. I did have to compete against guys in the beginning. I remember as a kid when I would get teased because I rode motorcycles. And they would call me all kinds of names. And then some people told me I shouldn't be doing that and I shouldn't be doing this.
Les femmes, en tout cas les héroïnes d'action, au cinéma, elles ont du mal à s'imposer telles quelles. C'est-à-dire, on ne peut pas dire, genre, on pose une femme et elle, c'est l'héroïne, en fait. Elle, ça va être la badass. On ne tolère pas, d'une certaine façon, qu'une femme, d'emblée, puisse être cet être puissant, puisse être ce héros indiscutable, cette héroïne indiscutable.
The way the character Ripley became in Alien, I think was really kind of a ground zero for a lot of the Hollywood action stars we've seen that have been women that have come since then. Because, you know, we'd had a lot of kind of action stars before. We had the Charlie's Angels, we had the Pam Griers, we'd had all sorts of stuff. But I think Ripley, as James Cameron kind of conceived of her, was something entirely new. I mean, there'd never been a character like that in an action film.
I think the whole Alien franchise, you know, has had a huge effect upon me as a cinema goer and as a filmmaker. You know, I was at school when Alien came out. It terrified me. I had a total crush on Sigourney Weaver. Aliens, I was a student when it came out. So I think those movies have kind of loomed very large in my consciousness.
I have a natural attraction to a strong female character because that's what raised me. I was raised by a single mother, and she's blind, and she's Latina, you know, she's a minority, she's a woman. And then I look back to what is my favorite movie of all time. And it's the James Cameron 1986 Aliens. And it's crazy because as a kid, I think I attached myself to that Ripley character because she almost looked like my mom. And maybe I, as a kid, had viewed my mother as this iconic, badass figure holding a gun and shooting it down and not afraid to tell a man, F you, and not afraid to kill aliens.
Well, listen, I've made a career out of making movies with very strong female leads, but that is more popular now, which is fantastic. But it wasn't like I was the first filmmaker to do that. You know, there were plenty of filmmakers working before, you know, Ridley with Ripley, you know, the Alien franchise, you know, but those movies tended to be the exception to the rule. It was always harder to get those movies made, I think, and to justify that there should be a female lead. It's very interesting that the original Alien script, all of the roles were non-specific in terms of gender. So when they looked at casting them, they looked at men, women, you know, for the same roles, rather than the movie actually specifically being written for a woman. Although I think Alien actually plays uniquely well because it is Sigourney Weaver in the lead.
I think that movie put women into positions of agency in every conceivable way in an action movie, and it's all centered around Ripley. So I think that's really the birth of the modern female action hero, I think. It's one of the first action movies I can think of, at least in Hollywood, where every single important character in that movie basically is female. You know, the star is a woman. She's protecting Newt, this little girl who's kind of her, you know, surrogate child. The alien itself is a female. Even kind of the most badass character in the whole movie is this Vasquez character.
Hey, Vasquez. Have you ever been mistaken for a man?
No. Have you?
Oh, Vasquez. You're just too bad.
The pull-up was not in the script. Hudson says, hey, you know, passes her or whatever and says, hey, Vasquez, you've been mistaken man. And she says, no, have you? So that was the line. So they're arranging the scene, you know, what do? That, you know, you get your shirts on or whatever. And when I was reading that, I was like, ooh, you know, I'm a very curvy woman and I'm wearing a tight T-shirt. It's not going to make any sense. You know, he says you've been mistaken for a man. I mean, I have short hair, but, you know. I called Jim over and I said, you know, maybe, you know, if he says the line while I'm doing the pull-ups, if you put a bar up and then you kind of maybe shoot me from here, you know, then it'll play much better. And he was like, that's a great idea. And then so he stopped and he had them rig up a pull-up bar and we reset the scene where we were doing pull-ups. What Cameron envisioned was the Marines in the future. It doesn't talk about gender. Now, that's not to say that there's not, you know, misogyny within the Marine Corps, but it's a standard of being able to do a job.
I only need to know one thing, where they are.
Go, Vasquez, kick ass.
Anytime, anywhere.
Right.
It was a war film. I mean, that was really the genre that it was. I mean, it was science fiction, but really the genre was the war film. And you prepare and you think of who she is, who she was, and she was a soldier. Before that, she was a gang member. You know, bravery comes from, a lot of times, nothing left to lose. And that was a very specific thing to both her and Drake, is that they were conscripted out of juvenile prison and they were serving a life term for murder, both of them. So there was no getting out. There was no freedom. There was nothing left to lose. So it wasn't this fake bravery. And that was the one thing that I was very conscious of, not wanting to be a cartoon character. She wasn't a superhero. She was just a person in a situation. We were definitely trained in urban warfare. We had two of the stuntmen had been in the SAS, you know, the military in Northern Ireland, and so they taught us how to hold the weapons, how to approach a building. So that was fantastic, you know, all the research, and I'd never shot a gun or anything. And again, you know, the last thing I wanted to look like was some silly actress holding a toy.
Le personnage de cette militaire qui est très badass, qui a des gros guns et tout, c'est intéressant parce qu'elle va, pour s'imposer, et elle est un peu obligée de le faire, elle va réutiliser des codes masculins. Les codes masculins, c'est vraiment ce gros gun, c'est un gros symbole phallique, c'est une extension du corps totalement, donc une extension vers l'avant, c'est le pénis qui est en érection d'une certaine façon. Et donc elle est obligée de réutiliser ce code-là pour s'imposer auprès des hommes. C'est-à-dire, regardez, moi aussi, je peux jouer avec les mêmes outils que vous, j'ai cette même extension de moi-même.
Yeah, that was an invention by James Cameron, and it was I can never remember, because I don't know really care about guns at all. Some sort of anti-aircraft gun that would usually be on a tripod on the back of a truck. And so he had it on the Steadicam, and it was balanced, and there was a certain way you had to stand so you didn't tip over. Jim just said, you know, what would be your training? What would you guys have a sort of discipline you would do? And we just sort of worked out a choreography, how to move, how to do it. It was great. I love that scene.
Ce qui est intéressant, c'est qu'elle n'oublie pas, toujours pas, d'être une femme en fait. C'est-à-dire que même si elle a tout l'attirail, elle a tout l'apparat du gros bonhomme avec les gros guns, elle est une femme. Et elle va pas se cacher d'être une femme en fait. Elle n'est pas obligée de se déguiser en homme, elle n'est pas déguisée en homme, elle a tous les attributs féminins. Est-ce que le personnage de Vasquez a influencé l'évolution de Sarah Connor? Linda Hamilton, dans Terminator, elle a les attributs féminins. Ça reste une femme en débardeur. Leur féminité n'a pas besoin d'être soulignée parce qu'elle est innée en elle. Et après, elle réutilise pour s'imposer dans un monde d'hommes. Et ça, c'est la question qu'on peut se poser. Est-ce qu'elles sont obligées, finalement, de réutiliser les codes des hommes pour s'imposer auprès des hommes? D'une certaine façon, oui, c'est une porte d'entrée pour imposer qui elles sont.
I mean, James Cameron really does deserve quite a lot of credit for what he did with the female action hero in the 80s, starting with Ripley in Aliens and then continuing to Sarah Connor in Terminator 2. And you think about what is like the most fearsome predator or animal you ever encounter in nature, and that's a mother defending her young. If you come across a male bear out in the forest, chances are he'll probably leave you alone. If you come between a female bear and her cub, you're dead. And so he really kind of incorporates that into both of those movies, where it's this maternal energy is really what's powering everything. Sarah Connor is trying to protect her son. Ripley is trying to protect Newt.
Get away from her, you bitch!
He understood how you can make something entirely, a primarily feminine impulse to go to every conceivable length to protect a child, and turns that into the most badass sort of character you've ever seen, both with Sarah Connor and Ripley. It seems obvious now, but I can't think of anyone who really clued in on that to the degree that Cameron did in the 80s and early 90s.
Les plus grandes icônes du cinéma d'action, c'est vraiment, pour moi, on est vraiment très années 80. C'est vrai que pour le coup, il y en a eu par la suite, mais pour moi, la plus grande, c'est Sarah Connor. Je pense que vraiment, c'est Sarah Connor. C'est vraiment un personnage qui n'a pas choisi en fait d'être une héroïne d'action du tout à la base. Elle s'est retrouvée avec ce poids-là en fait d'une destinée qu'elle n'a pas choisie. C'est une femme lambda, c'est une serveuse, c'est vraiment un numéro quasiment en fait ce personnage au début. Et d'un seul coup, elle va se créer une identité, qu'on va lui imposer d'une certaine façon, et elle va par résilience totalement exister et se trouver un rôle dans la vie à cause de cette destinée qu'elle n'a pas choisie. Donc en fait, elle me fascine complètement, puis c'est un personnage qui va prendre beaucoup de choses sur elle et sur son dos. À la fois toute l'image de la femme, de la maternité, etc. Et en même temps, le destin du monde, en fait. C'est vraiment une femme qui porte tout. C'est un personnage qui tombe 1000 fois, qui se relève 1000 fois, et qui a vraiment sa féminité chevillée au corps, parce qu'elle est une mère, définitivement, puisqu'on lui explique que sans le fait qu'elle est John Connor, l'humanité est fichue. Donc elle a ce rôle de porteuse de l'humanité en elle, de sauveuse de l'humanité en elle. Et en même temps, on sait aussi ce qui la fragilise d'une certaine façon, parce que le regard des hommes, parce que la violence des hommes vis-à-vis des femmes. Très intéressante cette scène où elle se fait lécher le visage comme ça à l'hôpital. C'est quand même montrer les hommes qui prennent possession du corps de la femme comme ça, de l'octroi, d'office. Et là, elle est en train de leur dire genre, ça va pas se passer comme ça. Et elle le défonce.
Terminator 2 was an amazing movie to work on. I really enjoyed it. I was Linda Hamilton's double. Linda Hamilton wanted to do most of her own things. So what I would do is I would work that out and coach her. Basically, we had a really good relationship. One of the fun things was working out that whole shotgun, cocking the one-handed thing with the limp at the end in Kaiser Steel. was just, you know, like running down and getting tackled and, you know, helping with the pull-ups and then doing some of the riding in the truck. She's a really nice person, and but she's very, very professional. What she was doing in that role, she lived. We did the thing with the helicopter coming through the underpass, and I'm hanging out the back. I've got a little cable, and I'm shooting at the helicopter. And somebody pulled out in front of the SWAT van, and the driver had to put the brakes on really hard, and I went just flying back into the metal grating. You know, so that was really wild. That was probably the most intense scene, because if that helicopter hit something, it was coming towards us. And it was pretty gnarly stuff. Stunt doubling a main character versus a regular character when you're doing vehicular stunts isn't really that much different. You do sometimes have to interact with them. Sometimes you never ever see the lead that you're doubling because we're on a second unit, a whole action vehicle unit that the actors never even come to.
Yeah, I mean, I think in the past it's sort of been expected to keep up this image that the actor did all their own action, and you know, it was sort of like we wanted to trick the audience and really make them believe that the actor did all that stuff. That's just sort of how it was in the past.
When I used to watch movies, I never would be like, oh, that's a stunt person doing that. You know, like, I feel like the audience is almost sometimes not even aware that we exist. In a sense, and they're just like, oh, that character's super cool and doing all of these moves, and it's like, no, there's really a double behind all of that.
I doubled Carrie-Anne Moss, the Trinity character on Matrix Reloaded. The freeway chase sequence, I'm really proud of that. I drove the Cadillac CTS. And the Ducati 996. And it was really intense. There was a lot of big stunts, and I had a blast. And the directors were just so excited about everything I did. That was awesome. I had a good rapport with Carrie-Anne, and I still do. She's a wonderful person. And after the movie came out, somewhere I saw that supposedly she said that she did all the writing. So I called her and I said, hey, Carrie-Anne, you know, I saw the article. Don't worry. I know that the studios make you say that. It's not a problem. She calls me back and she says, what? Are you kidding? I told them you did that. I told them, I made sure that they had your name and everything and that you did all the stunts. So the studios, you know, they'll fudge it.
You'll hear them in interviews and they're like, oh yeah, when I jumped out the train. I'm like, you didn't, I jumped out the train. And I did it like 6 times. And it was raining, you know? It's so much sacrifice because we have to be ready when we get a call to go on set and be prepared. We're representing not only ourselves, but the coordinator and the team, you know, and production. It's a little bit of pressure, but it's a lot of the offset training that we do. We have to keep the actors safe. So even when they're like, no, I really want, you know, it's our job to keep them safe. So if something happens, it looks bad on us.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to ask an actor to admit that they've got people doing these things for them. But the thing is that I've had actresses that I've doubled that are extremely capable and they're strong and athletic, you know, unless it's too dangerous. And then in which case, we can risk getting a bruise, but if they have a big speaking role the following day, it's not going to match if they have a black eye.
1, 2, yes. 3. Now grab the knife
Stab, stab, yes.
Okay. I try to do as much as my own stunts as possible. I just know it helps out, you know, producers love that if they can, but also for camera angles as well. What I love to do is try to push myself. And I feel like as an actress, that's part of our jobs, to do our homework and try to really embody that character as much as possible. Like this recent show I just filmed called Tribal, where I'm the lead. I play a chief sergeant detective. I did all my stunts except for one scene on that. And again, the one scene I didn't do just required something that I could have been injured on. And again, that goes back to how much I respect stunt people and stunt women and men, because, you know, as an actress, they need me alive and walking on set so I could do my job. Oh, that sells it. Okay. A lot of women are actually, they want to do their own stunts. Like, you know, they want to do as much as possible anyway that's safe, that the production will allow. I like that. I like working with them and helping empower them to feel like they can do it. I think that's really cool. Even if the actor is capable of doing the stunts or allowed to do the stunts, the stunt double will still help the riggers and the stunt coordinator set it up, make sure it's safe, rehearse it as many times as needed to know that it's absolutely safe. See what looks the coolest, because there could be various ways of doing it. And oftentimes they'll shoot the actor doing it, but they'll also shoot the stunt double doing it, and they have to blend those shots, because a lot of the time you only have the actor for, you know, we've got them for 2 hours for this, and they have to go to a different unit, and then its action unit or second unit has to pick up all the pieces and make sure you have all the shots to have a smooth, continuous scene, right?
I think if people knew more about what we did, that sometimes it's for that reason. And it's not that the actor couldn't do it or that they were scared. Maybe the actor did like a whole day of rehearsals and they were just exhausted. Maybe they did 3 takes and I did 2 takes. Maybe. And who knows which one they're gonna pick, because we're cutting it so intertwined, and maybe they have to go shoot some lines and they don't have time to shoot everything. So they're off doing an acting, speaking part while I'm here doing a stunt part to give them time to go home and rest. You know, if they need to wrap at 7 and they've been doing something all day trying to get one shot right, and then all of a sudden they have to get up and be physically fit for the next 2 hours over and over while concentrating, it might not be safe. So I think if that was more understood, it would be less offensive to people to realize that they have a stunt double, as opposed to, oh, they were too scared to ride a motorbike, that's sad. It's not the case.
There's a real synchronistic dynamic and relationship, because they're also having to portray your character to a point, even through their movements. Look, I'm happy to do what I can without obviously getting hurt and being a liability for production. But there are some things that I simply cannot do, and they do it so well and make the character look really fabulous and great. It's such a special group of women who have such unique talents and gifts and take serious risks. You know, they have families and lives, and they put themselves on the line for the performance, and I have such great respect for the stunt men and women, and it's always a joy for me to work with the stunt crew, because sometimes I feel like my mindset is very similar to theirs. You know, they get in there, they get dirty, they do their job, they have fun, and I get that. I like to do that too.
I've worked with a lot of big stars and big actresses, and like Michelle Rodriguez, she knows me and we work really well together. But sometimes it's just me doing her stunts and I don't get to see her at all. The first Fast and Furious, I drove the car underneath the moving semi-truck. And so not only was it moving at 50 miles an hour, it was swerving. So I had to kind of dance with it and then pick the time and just go underneath. The hit was separate, and then mirroring the truck and then hitting the pipe ramp off the side of the road. That one I love. It's funny because I was working with Michelle Rodriguez on the first one, And she said to me, I wanted to be an action star so I could do what you do. And she still says that today, you know, she goes, I picked the wrong career because I really wanted to do what you do.
My relationship with the stuntmen on every show is, it's just fun. It's like, I feel like they're my brothers, you know, I'm their little sister, and they're teaching me how to look good on camera. I have so much respect for stuntmen and stunt women. Like, they're so courageous every day. They literally put their lives on the line, and it's phenomenal. It takes a certain kind of person to be able to do that courageously and put their lives at risk like that and do it just fearlessly. So I have a lot of respect for them. They make us actors look good. It's like, I always feel with every move, even though they're not saying it, they're saying, I got you, don't worry. I got you. I'm gonna make you look good, don't worry.
In one hand, it's our job that you don't see us. We're there to make the actor look good. We're in the shadows, doubling them. We're dressing like them. We're looking like them. We are them. And when you watch a movie, it's nice to think of that person as a character and that that person is really doing all of these things. That's the bigger picture in movie illusion, that we're making that happen. But in the other hand, so is everyone else that's getting rewarded for their jobs. We are part of that crew that's adding our part and our skills and our training, a lifetime worth of training for most of us. We started when we were 2 or 3. And, you know, to not be able to get recognized for that within our community is sad to me.
I really believe that it's past time for an Academy Award. Sometimes I think that they don't want us to know how much we're worth. But honestly, we do create the action that gets people involved, it gets their adrenaline up and the excitement and everything of going to the movies and seeing an action film that people love. It's because of what we do.
I worked on Mad Max, and you know, I was doubling Zoe Kravitz. When Zoe gets taken out the car, we did it going, I would say when we were rehearsing, about 40 miles an hour. How they would do it, I had a harness on, and then he comes in, he clips me in the harness, and then we're, you know, up in the air, and then we're going, you know, to the transfer to the other car. We had so many Academy Awards, and working on a film that's like so monumental, so phenomenal, and sacrificed 6 months of being out the country in Africa. It was a beautiful experience, but not being able to be awarded. I was there a month before anybody. I was there before the actors were there. And then all the clips that they show, the majority of the clips that they showed from Mad Max, they were all stunts. Literally, you know, so that's the frustrating part about it. That sucks. That's not cool.
You know, they give it for people that aren't even doing a performance. What we do is a performance. We do the work in front of camera, and we should get credited. It's just a really, really hard thing, and I wish that they would fix it because there's no reason not to now. There's no reason.
I mean, stunt performers have never gotten the right amount of credit, ever. I mean, there's no Oscar for stunt performers for some reason. They have one of the coolest jobs in film, but also one of the most dangerous, arduous, I mean, just brutal jobs in film, and they don't get the correct amount of attention for it. So, I mean, I think that's something that the industry in general needs to appreciate more, stunt people. And as usual, you know, women are less appreciated than the men who aren't very appreciated. It's you know, it's almost predictable.
I heard about this audition for Terminator 3. There hadn't been a Terminator, I believe, in 12 years. It was a big deal. They were bringing back the franchise for another installment. And I had always remembered Robert Patrick's performance in Terminator 2. To me, what he did with T-1000 was just hypnotic and mesmerizing, and I didn't see any human traits at all, and I was just blown away by that performance. So I was really excited at the opportunity to audition for this role. And it ended up becoming a series of auditions, probably about 8 or so by the time I actually found out that I got the job. And they were very physical for the most part. It was a lot of running, falling, jumping over things, looking, getting up. To me, I think it was just an embodying of what is this female version of the TX? How can I create her and also make her my own? Because it was a woman, and we hadn't seen a woman before. So there's certain elements that you'll see in the film that are female signs, like in the bathroom fight scene, she checks herself out in the mirror as she's walking by. You know, there were things that weren't scripted that I just added because these are things that women do. You know, there's another moment when she's tasting the blood and she has this kind of internal reaction to that human life force that she's tasting. All of these little colorings were important to me to really create the TX in a feminine way and also make her my own. I think the idea of bringing a woman into that role was something that was very unusual, especially someone who's going to go toe-to-toe or head-to-head with Arnold Schwarzenegger. There was a lot of, I know, skepticism in me, like who's this young, you know, tall, blonde woman who's going to be pitted against this male iconic figure of cinema history. Frankly, I like that kind of pressure because it really fuels the fire in me to go, all right, I'll show you what I got. So I trained my butt off and just really tried to get into that internal mindset of the killing machine.
Hollywood is definitely more difficult for women than for actresses as compared to actors. I mean, just the numbers wise. You look at a script and it's 85% of the roles are for men. And as just an actor, just as a character actor trying to get a job, and there are 3 for women. It's just a numbers game.
There just kind of is more work for men. There just is. Especially when there's been a lot of war films or big bar fights. Like there'll be 20 guys in a bar fight and like maybe one girl, maybe. And she's probably not gonna be 5'2" and 115 pounds. She's probably gonna be like 6 foot tall and, you know.
So you and I've taught acting or talked to girls who want to be actresses. You know, you just tell them this is just how it works, unless you get out there and you write your material. You know, because if all the writers are men, they're writing their stories, usually, but it's not in the case of, you know, James Cameron. It doesn't have to be that way. And those in power to finance them, and that's very important, is to get the product made.
Traditionally, it's definitely been a man's world, for sure. Obviously, that's changed drastically now. You know, women's rights, and you know, it's sort of been a long struggle. But the Me Too movement, I think, definitely had some influence on that. There's been a lot of changes lately. It's really cool. There's a lot more women involved, a lot more diversity. Women in heads of department, so stunt coordinator is one of my best friends. Minnie Gannerton is Marvel's first female stunt coordinator, so that's really huge. There's you know, Shauna Duggins and Zoe Bell and lots of these women who are actually heads of department. So we're definitely infiltrating that part of the business, and it's a good thing.
I can tell you that I have seen how the Me Too movement has definitely inspired and encouraged and changed the industry. I see a lot more stories written with female lead characters. I get requests for stories starring female lead characters. I get requests from production companies that are led by women wanting films for women more than ever. I see casting notices, casting requests and auditions, lead character women, more than I've ever seen. In the last 2 years, I have definitely seen a change. And I think that's for a lot for the better.
So has there been a change with the whole woman movement and everything? I think in a slight bit, yes. Like when Wonder Woman came out and obviously it was a remake and everything else, I think it blew up and it was super cool. That was one of the most fun, long experiences of my life, 9 months shooting on that film. The fight with the Germans was super cool. I do a slide on the shield throughout the room. I'm always for women empowerment, of course. You know, like we spoke about coming from male-dominated type, you know, sports or an industry and kind of, you know, obviously just showing like, hey, we have a presence in this as well. I don't think it has changed all that much. Like I say, there always is going to be female characters. You're not going to have a male-dominated movie. Now, will you have some that are like, you know, 300, which is obviously army and men and fighting and sword? Yeah, of course. And then you'll have Wonder Woman, which was a lot females, you know, you had Chris Pine in it, but besides that, it was gal and it was all her Amazonians. So I definitely see there's a bit of a balance with it, which is, I think, cool because, hey, we should all be able to shine. But yeah, there are, I think, a lot more females trying to step up and be writers and be directors and, you know, even be stunt coordinators, which I think is super cool because to me, at the end of the day, if you have the experience and you have the skill and you have the knowledge, why not?
I think in this day and age, it's getting easier to be a woman in action films. So there's actually a demand for it now, and it's a great time to be a woman of color in general, and a woman trying to play these male roles. You know, we couldn't do it if writers and directors and producers weren't supportive of that. And that's another thing I want to mention too. It's like I've been so blessed and so lucky to work with producers who are trying to set the bar of showing that women can equally kick ass.
I definitely do notice that there's a lot of female leading characters, superhero characters. Yeah, there's quite a few because I've doubled quite a few, and it seems like it's becoming more of a common thing, which is amazing. It's long overdue. Women are amazing, you know, and we are equals. We're sort of celebrating women's strengths and what they bring. I do feel like since then, it is a little less chauvinistic on set. You know, people are a little more, they're more careful of what they say. They're more respectful. They don't feel as liberated to just make comments that might make people feel uncomfortable. People are definitely more careful, especially right after that initially happened. People were almost scared to talk or touch each other. There was like, oh my God, everyone was so scared to be, you know, accused of being a Me Too perpetrator or something.
Since the Me Too movement, I've seen some more roles for women. There's good things and bad things about the Me Too movement, and I totally think it's wonderful that the women who had to go through those horrible things have been able to come forward and bring awareness to the problem, the rampant problem that was happening. But I think there's more work to be done, and the problem with the Me Too movement would be that men are more afraid to hire women or be around women because they're not sure if they're going to get blamed for something, you know, by somebody that's not really telling the truth.
So there seems to be now this other swing of the pendulum where there's this censorship, which I think is really fear-based. I think it's a backlash of what we've seen, and now people are scared. But I don't think to use fear as a motivator is necessarily the best way to educate. I think it's really getting into the root of what's going on for people that they feel this need to overcompensate in the way that they are. So yes, I do believe there is a real difference, and I know people are walking on eggshells, especially men, and I don't believe that's the best approach.
I think right away for the first 6 months after that, everyone was watching their backs a lot, and in a positive way, everyone just had to like think about, what does this mean to me? And the guys that it really affected were the ones who maybe should have known better. But I think it's been positive as far as when I am uncomfortable, I feel more at ease to say, hey, cool it. That's not okay.
I've done well with working with men. I grew up around guys, you know. I was a tomboy. I played with boys all the time. I rode with men. I see the world changing in a better way, but you're never going to get rid of all of it. If you look at history, it tells you how women have been treated, and I think that sometimes people can overcompensate. So I think if we bring common sense back into the mix, everything will go much better. So I would hope that more balance would come in, because it seems like things swing from total abuse to, okay, now we're the good ones, we're going to abuse you. And I hate to see that, because we all work together as a team. And I hope that there's more of that in the future. And I'm so glad that there's more roles for women, and that girls aren't being teased for being athletic anymore.
After the Me Too movement kicks into gear with the Harvey Weinstein revelations, you know, you have movies that almost play like a reaction to it, like Atomic Blonde, where it's just this woman who is fed up with all this shit, who's really just beating the shit out of one guy after another guy after another guy. I'm curious when we will see like a real reaction to the Me Too movement in an action film with a woman. Because we've seen things that kind of work in concert with it, which is kind of coincidental. Or you can bring what you want to bring to it, and you can find that vicarious thrill in seeing a woman just beat the living shit out of all these guys when you're hearing about these horrible things. But I assume we're going to see that more explicitly reflected in films going forward. And I'm curious what that's going to look like. Because there's a lot of female anger for very justifiable reasons. Working that out through an action movie is a great way to do it. So I think we're maybe a year or two away from hopefully seeing what that looks like. I'm very curious.
Est-ce que c'est MeToo qui a influencé tout ça? Oui et non, en fait. Oui et non. La réflexion, elle était déjà en cours. Ça fait un moment que quand même ces discussions-là sur la perception des femmes, ces discussions féministes étaient déjà là. Elles étaient déjà dans les tuyaux. Ça fait pas, c'est pas MeToo qui a fait découvrir le féminisme à tout le monde, en tout cas. Enfin, ça existait déjà. Mais MeToo aux États-Unis, ça a plutôt eu un effet au sein de l'industrie telle qu'elle. Ça a changé des personnes à la tête de certains studios. Je pense à Weinstein, évidemment. Ça a modifié, en tout cas, la façon dont on amenait les choses sur le tournage. En effet, les réalisatrices ont pris plus de place aussi. On les a imposées davantage. C'est plus au niveau de l'industrie qu'il y a eu ce changement. MeToo a réfléchi au sein même de son microcosme. Mais ça a forcément une influence sur les films, en fait. Ça a forcément une influence derrière. Bien sûr, on ne peut plus faire des personnages comme on les faisait il y a ne serait-ce même que 10-15 ans. On ne peut plus les penser de cette façon-là.
The ending scene of Kiss Kiss, we really needed to make something very powerful. You watch for 80 minutes of the women go through a very, very harsh journey. And I don't mind to be over the top with things, so we came up with the idea of ripping the balls off of a man.
Badass bitch.
I think because we were all so upset that this character was so deceiving, I am able to yank his balls off.
When I would do the What Dreams May Come, I was up in the air so long that I'm going, the ground is coming. I know the ground is coming. This is gonna hurt. The ground is coming.